I'm going to be really brief. I think most of the people here have been hearing about Sky Squad since Sky Squad began 4 years ago. I've lost track of time. Sometimes I do that on purpose. So Amy and I met 5 years ago at a symposium on restorative practices and restorative justice at the University of Michigan. She was ready to get restorative practices into the Skyline High School like yesterday. So she and I connected, and we started the conversation about how that could work. And over that period of time, about a year, we decided that, or she decided that it will be student-oriented. So unlike some schools where the adults go in and help the students resolve conflict, she wanted to have a student-oriented, student-led program. So 4 years ago, we did our first training there, 4 school years ago, I want to keep that in perspective. We did our first training there, and it was the most amazing, I don't say this because they're here, I say this all the time, it was the most amazing experience that I have ever had in what now is about 20 years of doing dispute resolution for me. They get it, they apply it, they embrace it, they can embody it. And I don't know if it's less filters because you're young and you see the world in a different perspective. I don't know what it is, but in 2 days, they had it and they started to run with it. And what is amazing about Skyline, just a shout out to the administration there, they're comfortable with it. So there's no power struggle with the Sky Squad. To the point of seeing such value in that program that Amy was able to have her position modified so she can spend more time cultivating the Sky Squad. And for those, and while that may not be a big deal as you're listening to me, no other school that I've worked with has ever made a conscious decision in Michigan to put money behind the program that way. So that's huge. That is huge from my perspective. So I am always excited to hear about what they're doing. I get a chance to be with them early in the school year. We reconnect and go over some training stuff. It's always fun, always an experience that sticks with me forever. So I'm going to stop talking because I can go on and turn it over to Amy so we can hear about what Sky Squad is doing.
Yeah, you look so much more familiar now that you said that.
Right.
So thank you so much for having us. I'm not going to talk a lot. I'm going to turn it over to them. We have a PowerPoint that we use just as a guide. They've told me before we came in here that they just it's informal. So if you have a question, you don't have to wait till the end. But we'll just go through the slides of kind of, we set it up, our how we started, a little bit of what we say Auntie Belinda, what she's already told you. And then we talk about our process and how it works. So if you have any questions at all, just shout them out. And let's start down with Omar.
Okay, so this is our history. So in the fall of 2014, we we had this idea, and we started, this is kind of where we essentially just started it. We attended these restorative practices symposium at the U of M and wrote a grant for the Dispute Resolution Center. And then 16 students were chosen by teachers, and along with the 8 adults, to attend the 2-day intensive training.
Okay, so after the training.
Oh, it's from my perspective, so you don't have to say
mind.
you. No, you say it, but just on the eye.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Students and Amy.
We met with Amy twice a week for a month to develop the program, and we practiced peacemaking in and out of circles, so just like all the time. We discussed what it would look like in the school and like in circles, or just like times in concert, what we would do to help create peace. And we worked with administration to talk about the relevancy of restorative practices, and yeah, we just spoke at staff meetings.
Which, just to add in there, we do that every year. We speak to our staff, and we're much more like everybody knows, Sky Squad knows. We were exiting the building today, like there was a couple of younger underclassmen that were like, "Ooh, Sky Squad," and it feels very powerful and fun. Which that was not the case at the beginning. And those students have all graduated now. The ones that really decided, Auntie Belinda gave me credit for that, but the students, those first students decided, if you want this to work, the adults need to get out of the room. And so we did that. We did that kind of behind closed doors, and we did not tell administration, which gives you a little insight into me and most likely my high school experience. I was just not telling them and asked for forgiveness later. And so, and it worked. And I knew that it would work. I really believed I knew this. I knew that the students could do this work. And once we proved it to be successful and had so much success, I knew that once we took that to administration, they wouldn't take it away because it's keeping students out of their offices. So they're really providing a service. Oh, any questions on that part?
I think it's worth noting too that you had a lot of students interested in
Oh,
being
yeah.
on the team
Yeah.
at the first year.
Yeah.
Like, was it 200?
Yeah, we every year, most students want to be on Sky Squad, so especially if they've been in the office, like it's a thing. The first year we picked them because we didn't even know what it would look like, so teachers and administrators, that doesn't happen anymore. Now the students, these folks will choose students that they see around the school, and they'll go through an interview process with them and me in the room. But it's all a student process now of who is on Sky Squad, and they're pretty heavily vetted, and I think it's taken very seriously. But yeah, most students, even if they're in the office for a couple of minutes, are like, how do you get in here? What do you do? So they want to be in.
What criteria do you all use to vet your colleagues to determine whether or not they should do the kinds of things you all are doing?
See, remember the interview process, the questions?
I feel like we look at like how they interact with other people their age and older. We look at what kind of groups are they a part of, what social circles are they a part of, who do they represent, so that we can get a equal distribution of people in the whole Sky Squad, so there's not just one group of people and just I don't know, try to get it more diverse.
How did you get the administration so on board? I think you've been finding, Belinda, that doesn't happen at some schools, like any other school?
It doesn't happen at a lot of schools. Amy,
I think what we, again, and I would not recommend this for everybody, but I had a good enough relationship with my principal to know that I didn't need to, I knew that I needed to get the data to say this is working before I went to him and said this is what we need to have in our school. So he gave us permission to do what we were doing with Belinda. He did not know then that we had already started circles with students. And so we did that, and I got the data to say this is working. Our students are doing this work. That's why you're seeing this, you're seeing a mitigation of all these little ninth grade fights in your office because we're doing this work, and they felt it. They'd already started, the assistant principals had started to feel it. So we did that for, I would say, 2 or 3 months before I actually said, and I'm not in the room. So they thought we were doing circles with me in there. So I wouldn't recommend that for everybody, obviously. I think I had a good enough relationship with my principal and professionally that I could do that. But I think it's really looking at data and showing administration, this is how we're going to keep ninth graders out of your office. We're going to handle this stuff, and it's going to be authentic. It's not just going to be just to keep them in check or behavior. We're going to help them develop into the kind of citizens we want in our school. And so I came with a lot of data.
That's great. What's your background in alternative
What Auntie Belinda and those folks have taught me. I'm a counselor, so I have a master's in education. I've done the Oakland whatever Oakland offers, which is a peer mediation. Yeah, I did that. That did not work at our school. And so I've just tried to latch on to folks like Auntie Belinda and Judge Connors, and I was lucky enough to go to that peacemaking conference, which was up north, and so and I really subscribe to that school, which is that this is not our work, this is tribal work, and really honoring that, and we bring that to ours as well.
and I would add to that, just like we talk about in peacemaking, building relationships, the restorative model, be it peacemaking, restorative practice, or whatever, there's a big emphasis on building relationship, and Amy and I invested time in building our relationships. So value-wise, we were on the same page. We unpacked, all of our junk around youth and youth voice and those kinds of things, and it was a really good fit. I mean, there was no. I have to say, this is kind of to Joan's point. this is the one school that I felt no competition or no one corrected me. They accepted what I put on the table and we worked through it, you know, but I just didn't feel some of the power. When I say competition, that power, the push and pull, which was my lesson of are they ready? And they were beyond ready. Beyond. The longevity of the program is very different. And I'm sorry, we're taking away from your PowerPoint.
What cases come to you?
We'll get to that, if that's okay, yeah.
I have a question to all of you. What motivated you to become involved?
We'll also get to that. It's up here, if that's okay. Yep, we'll get to that.
Amy, I'd like to tell one early story, if I have it correctly, and that is that when it was decided that the teachers should be informed about the program, the 8 adults in the room thought
Yep.
they would teach the teachers, and the students said, no, 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 we're going to teach the teachers.
Yep, yep,
So right from the beginning, it was student-led.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty protective of Sky Squad. There's not a lot of outside people that, the people that come into Sky Squad are Auntie Belinda and then a few people we work with from U of M that we do body language workshops and we do things like that, and really team building things, but we don't let a lot of people come in, even teachers come in, because I think that they have the values and we put out the values. We don't ask people to come in and kind of share their opinions because everybody has an opinion. And so we try to keep it pretty close-knit.
4 years later.
Oh. Sorry. I don't know what's happening. Here we go.
Oh. 4 years later.
This is Kashi. She's one of the originals and a superstar.
So, in our history, we've conducted over 240 circles, and we have like a 96% resolution rate. So we're super efficient. And we established like a student-only circle resolution process. So it's literally it's just us in the room, and anything that is said stays in that room. That's what's really important. As I said, it's secure in the office. And like, for example, I take a class and I can get credit for that class, which is me just doing like Sky Squad work or whatever Amy asked me to. And I can just sit in the room. That's also helpful. And we do have like a really coordinated reduced suspension plan. So normally sometimes our suspensions, kids will be out for like a whole week, but now like they get to come back earlier and we like help them like get back into school and like make sure like they don't have like a problem. And then another thing, we have like a 9th grade mentoring program, because one of the thing is like when you get to high school, and I'm sure you guys are already kind of overwhelmed, and sometimes there's not like something in place to help you. But now like we kind of come in and we like spread our wings around the 9th graders and just bring them in and help them. And we have a counselor, Amy, who is half-time a counselor and half-time Sky Squad. So that's nice.
Wasn't the 9th grade mentoring program Sky Squad's idea?
Yeah, Miles McGuire. Yeah, Miles McGuire, who's one of our official, I was going to say OG and then I tried to change it, was one of our old school guys, and there was a couple of students that kept having reoccurring fights, like just would fight. And he was like, we've got to do something. And he came up with a little mentoring protocol and talked about it and really was the visionary for that. It was great.
And then also the way that Amy describes ourselves when we're in the office is she says like a firefighter kind of thing. So when we have downtime, we have downtime, we're working on our work for other classes. But then like if she needs us, we're on. Like we're going at it, I do 9th grade mentoring often, so I'm running downstairs helping out some 9th graders. There's a fight, in 2 hours they could be in our room, so it's like we're on when we need to be on.
Even like small stuff like helping the students with tests, like a student will come in the office, be like, Amy, I need help with this test, and I'll just be in the office, she's like, can you help? And I'm like, yeah.
And a lot of students come in because like some just need somebody to talk to, and they're just like upset about something, and they don't want you to talk and get the opinion. They just want you to listen, and we just sit there and listen.
And I'll do this side so we turned our office, so we used to have an office with a secretary and then 3 counselors, and not in a bad way, but we literally drove the secretary out because there's so many students in there all the time, and it was just it wasn't functional to have somebody sitting out there when we had so many kids out there. So our administration was gracious enough to let us kind of take over that office. So we actually have that office now. And also in that office, there's another group that works out of there, Leaders of Today and Tomorrow. And those students are students that are assigned one, he's kind of like a case manager, and he has 20 students that are struggling either academically or socially. So it's good that they're in there with Sky Squad. So we have Sky Squad students that can kind of help and also just model appropriate behavior. And that's what the intervention specialist corner is. But we're in there. We have the Peace Facility and Mentoring, 9th grade transition support counselor, which is now what I'm called. The student equity team also runs out of there. So now, after last year, we've developed a student equity team, which a lot of Sky Squad members sit on and talk about just issues of equity among the schools. So they also sit on that. We have a girls group that runs out of that office, and it's also an alternative testing site, and another counselor is in there as well as another social worker. So there's a lot of stuff happening in our office, and I really see these folks who are in there as an extension. So I can't be, there's like 30 things going on at one time, and it's really helpful to be able to say, like, Miles, I need you to take this young man to his class, ask his teacher what's happening, and help him get on track, and Miles takes him and does that. On the other side of that, because they do get class credit now, but on the other side of that, I do ask a lot of them when I ask a lot of them. And then on days where I don't need them, it's like, yeah, I don't care if they're watching Netflix or whatever they're doing. I think that's appropriate because I do ask so much of them when I do ask it. So they kind of have the downtime and whatever. Any questions on that? Yeah.
What content area do they get credit in?
Just an elective.
Okay.
Yeah, on their transcript it says peer facilitating. All right, who's up?
Alrighty, so it didn't happen overnight, but there was a lot of training on like different scenarios that we all went through that like help us prepare for like future stuff. So like we're in high school and there's a lot of relationships going on and a lot of schoolwork, some drama sometimes, and so we went through training amongst ourselves and with Auntie Belinda that helped us prepare for it. We also communicate because it leads us to inspire others to be the best selves. So like people look up to us in the school, like she said, like we walk through the hallways, we're like, oh, where are you going? Like, what are you doing? Like, what's up with you? So it's like we're kind of like leaders in our community, and people really look up to us and like flock to us. Motivation. So when they see us doing our work, they also want to do their work because they want to like, I don't know, succeed too. Administration, trust, and support. Like I know personally my relationship with the principal is like something I never would have ever imagined. Like I can like talk to him for like 15 minutes about like something totally random. Like we talked about beards one time. He actually decided to grow out his beard. It was super cool. But it's just like a teacher relationship almost, but with someone that you know that'll actually listen to you and cares about what you care about. And we're doing these symposiums, working at workshops, talking, educating other people about what we do. So it's definitely influential and helpful, not for just us, but the best.
Can someone pick up that number 2 there, the school to prison pipeline?
Yeah, I totally missed it.
It's okay. Somebody can pick that up.
School to prison pipeline is very real, and we'll not let bad choices define our community. But like how that says, the school to prison pipeline is actually very real. Seeing students actually fall victim to it, it's pretty sad. And like to know what we're doing, like the work that we do, that the work that we do helps. It's just great because you know sometimes you might be saving somebody, and that's just a great feeling.
Yeah, and it starts with these like longer suspensions, right? So if we can get kids into our office and do circles and try to help mediate those suspensions and get them cut down, like that's just some small things, some small actions that can make big impacts.
Well, it really is. So this morning I had a young woman who had a confrontation with 2 different hall monitors, and they were trying to get her down to the administration, and I had just happened to walk by, so I took her and just took her up to the office, and she was still disrespectful in the office, but she's clearly having a bad day. So instead of getting suspended, she had a bad day in the office. I was like, why don't you just do some work quietly? And she sat there for about 20 minutes, and then she was fine. It's like sometimes you just need a place to just chill out for a second. And she didn't want to, like, I didn't bug her about what was going on, but that office provides a place for you to come in and not be your best self, to come in and make, like, maybe cuss or yell or whatever. You know, we've seen the 9th and 10th graders, they just need a place to like, blah, without being punished for it. And so for her, she was able to just calm down, get herself together, and then she went to second hour. And it doesn't have to be a big deal. But that's also about what we learn together and what the students have taught me a lot too. It's about me not having to be the authority and have everything be about me. It's like it's like, yes, she's saying disrespectful things, but it's like I'm an adult. Like I don't know what she's going through. Like, and if I could just set aside my ego for a second, and I think that's what I ask of them a lot, because they do have a lot of students that are disrespectful in a circle at first, and they have to check their ego. So it's like if we set aside our ego and let somebody just be human for a second, and then say, oh, okay, if you don't react, she just needed a place to be, and so she did. She went to class, and I think that's what we do most of the time now.
I want to just underscore Miles' comment about saving lives. In my email box this morning, true story, from another agency, and I'm careful I'm not disclosing any names or schools or anything like that, but a school here in Washington County where a student was on track to be suspended for 180 days at this point of the school year. So we're talking about not finishing up this school year and not getting back to school next September until that 180 days is expired. So, you know, I would have to pull out a calendar and do the math, but that kid will probably go back to school next January. 180 days. So you don't finish your current school year, and then you go back about midpoint next school year. How far behind? How frustrating? Will that kid go back? What's going to happen in the meantime? All of those questions were raised. Obviously, so the decision was appealed. So the decision had been made by one level of administration. The decision was appealed to go to the next level of administration. And at the end of the story, the kid was being suspended for 20 days. So what did you do to warrant 186 months of suspension that reduced down to not quite a month of suspension? So when you talk about, you know, the school to prison pipeline, that's the pipeline in action, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Someone made a choice to exclude, kick out, whatever, to this kid. I don't know the conditions, I don't know the circumstances, I don't know who this kid is, but what would that kid have been, if whatever that kid did to be in that much trouble for 180 days, chances are that kid was going to be wreaking havoc in the community while they're not in school. That's my deduction. I don't know if it's real or fiction. But obviously not so bad if you could get in after 20 days. So I just want to highlight the comment about the school to prison pipeline. This work responds to that, and some people think it's not real, that it's something old, something, you know, in the social justice arena that's just making a lot of noise. It's very real. It's an extremely real thing, and it's still happening, and that is happening in Washington County. So I just wanted to put that on the minds of folks right here.
Okay. Amy, how do you do it? Who does the triage? You cited this situation with the young woman who got into it with Hall monitor, and you let her kind of sit it out and chill, and presumably that handled the problem. You get a whole host of problems that would require varying degrees of intervention. Who decides who gets what?
Yeah, go ahead.
Like how Amy said, like how Eric was talking about, we kind of have it as a class, so there's multiple people there. Like I might, like it might be me, the person that's going to get that person out of the way that's like acting up, and just like let them chill out and let them like cool down. Like it's just like all of us are in the office, like all of us like will respond to certain issues. So like while I may be out in the hallway talking with somebody, Keyshawn might have to go get somebody out of class. Eric might be doing a circle with somebody else in the circle room. It's like that's what's good about having her as a class, and like we just have the opportunity to be like kind of all around the place. And then on top of that, Amy, like we just like sometimes we'll just be brought out of class, and we know that like she needs our help, and we'll just do it.
So you would be like the first line of defense, so that if somebody acts out you could keep that person from
Yeah,
showing up at
if
the
we see it
principal's door.
first, it doesn't have to be triage, because we'll get them. If they hear about it, they'll text me and say, there's this kid, blah, 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 I'll go get them, intervene. But there's a lot, also teachers now, most teachers are pretty receptive, and they'll say, like, you gotta go down to the office. Like, and sometimes when students get sent to the admin office, they'll come to us first, and then we'll fix it, and then I'll call admin and say, actually, we got it, we're good. So if students know now more to get to our office before going to admin, usually the only admin referrals we get are if they've already heard of the conflict or a fight that's happened. And every student that fights in Skyline, which we actually have not had a lot of circles this year because of this, because people are not fighting, but if you have a fight and you're suspended, you have to come through Sky Squad to get back into school. So you and whoever you fought with have to sit and figure it out before you come back to school with us. So that's just a protocol. But it comes to, I mean, we get it from whoever can tell us, and that's why there's 20 Sky Squad members in the school, and whoever can tell me or whoever gets to us, we try to just get them into the office, which I know that's not a hard and fast answer, but it's just however we either see them, teacher tells us, admin occasionally will, by the time admin hears it, these guys have already heard it, so it's not necessarily coming from admin.
And I would add that for those of us who are not in a school building, don't realize how fluid it really is. It was, from a program perspective, it cannot be, so I think I work well with them because of how I think and process information. It cannot be a linear, rigid process. Kids are not linear, they're not rigid, they're up one day, down the next, and they're very flexible, and that's, I think, a big part of why it works so well, that they can step back and say, we're going to readjust, recalibrate, but the goal is to address the conflict and get the kids back at school or back into the classroom. And you guys are experts in that, because those of us who are much more mature, we like things to line up. And it needs to happen and line up the same time, every time, for our own comfort. But they can just bend and mold and adjust and fix and work and still not lose the integrity of what the work is. And I love that about it. I just absolutely love it.
Sounds like so much success. Is there some way you have of capturing numbers, which you don't need, but in order to sell this, it would be really nice to have the statistics.
Yeah, we have the 96% success rate. We don't have a lot of repeat circles, and when we do, it's usually the same, group of ninth graders. They have to have like 3 circles. So we do a survey at the end that captures that data.
It's really hard to be able to say this many people didn't get suspended, or these things didn't happen. So
the school does have, the district has suspension data, and I should have looked before I left, but ours was drastically reduced from the time we've started till now. And Skyline's doing, compared to our other comprehensive high schools, we're leading with the lowest suspension rate right now. But I don't have that exact data, but they have that data.
And not only does the district have it, the Civil Rights Department has that data too. Yes, and I've been called about that data from the Civil Rights Department. So, yeah.
Knowing the racial and gender diversity of your group, is that an issue at all when squad members get involved with the problems, identifying some accommodation that may be necessary from either a female or male or a black and white student? Does this become an issue at all?
It's like, because there's always 2 of us in a room when we do these circles and all this other stuff, that it's usually, we're all diverse, and we're all very diverse. We're always like around each other, so we also get like a feel for like how others do. And like, I'll just use one example. There was a circle I was in, and there was 5 girls, and I was the only boy. So it was kind of hard for me to like relate. But like, once you like get a feel for it, like it's really hard at first. But then once you're around it enough, you kind of like get a sixth sense for it, and you can kind of just start to understand like that it's like other thing. It helps you see like the other side of like all these arguments that you like see around the world. You get to see that like firsthand, and then it really gains, you get a lot of perspective from it, and it really helps you like completely understand like how that other person feels, like, because I think there's too much in this world of people like being closed-minded and only agreeing with what they believe is right, but then there's not enough people who like see the other side of it, and once you can do that, you can really help them, because I feel like what helping somebody is just understanding where they're coming from and understanding like how they feel.
Yeah. And, like, Skyline's a very diverse school, and like when we do the interview process, we try to make sure like the members of Sky Squad like reflect that diversity, and I think that definitely is like a positive, and it really helps us with like relating to the circles. So like Eric said, like if there's something in the circle that is best like responded to or like can best be understood by a certain member of Sky Squad, like we can do that because we have the diversity, and I think that totally is something that like helps us and helps contribute to the success of that.
And even with having like someone who might be better responding to it, I mean, there are kids who can come in with these issues, but we all understand that we need to still be there and allow them to say what they have said, like be able to hear them and listen to them. Like whether it may be kind of an attack towards maybe our own race or our own gender, we still need, I think I can speak for all of us, we all understand that we have to still be there and listen if we have to.
Yeah.
Which is hard because we've had, I mean, I know, was it Miles? Were you in the circle where the girl with the N-word? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you know, we're dealing with issues of racism and homophobia, and then and that's a very personal thing for some of the Sky Squad members sitting in there. So if Miles has to sit there and he's mediating a circle, trying to teach this young woman why it's not okay for her to say the N-word, that could be very personal. So I think we talk about that beforehand, but most of it I expect them to tell me if it's too much, but I really expect a lot of them that they can go in there because I think that, I ask them to be impartial. I ask them to step out of themselves a little bit and then come back around and empathize. And then I put things on like I'll say to Solomon, like, I don't know what is happening with this young white man. You need to fix it. Like, so I'll also at times put that on it, that it's like, I don't know. I've talked to him and he's being horrible. Could you please fix it? Because somebody else, he's not going to listen to somebody else. But he is probably going to listen to Solomon because of his skin color, which is horrible. But whatever it takes for us to get some movement, we're going to do that.
I'd like to speak to us here. A lot of questions being directed at Amy when it is the Sky Squad who are answering. I think we just direct
Absolutely.
the Sky Squad.
Yes.
And appreciate their position.
Perfect.
Thank you for going on this guy.
Yep.
Yeah, so like I said before, like I kind of answered this in the question.
That's
So like in our interviews, we try to get a diverse range, so it kind of reflects Skyline. That's a positive for us. Yeah, so for the members of Sky Squad, all of us, I think, we demonstrate a passion to think differently and critically because the restorative practice is different than what has been like prescribed to us throughout the educational system. And I think me definitely, in being involved in Sky Squad, I've changed. My views have adapted, and I think I can speak for all of us that it's the same. And so someone that can think critically and differently is definitely going to be suited for Sky Squad. And embrace the role as change agents and peacekeepers. So it's the same thing. You have to practice what you preach, right? If you're like representing the ideal standard of like restorative practice, and you're telling these kids that fighting or arguments is not the way to best solve problems, then you have to do that too. And like you have to take these ideals and the ideas of restorative practice to heart, and then adapt to that way of life. So, and brave and courageous enough to be vulnerable and empathetic. I think that's really important because with a lot of these, whether it's in a circle or you just need someone, or someone just needs to talk to you, like they're going to be vulnerable, and you can best respond to them and you can best help them if you reflect that vulnerability and you use empathy to kind of relate to whatever they're going through, because we've all gone through stuff, but we've not gone through what exactly they've gone through too. So it's that mix of like, I can relate to you, but I don't know what you're feeling, so I'm going to take what you say as the truth and kind of reflect my opinions on it and try to help you. So I think that's something that helps us with the circles, and it helps us just relating to people. Yeah.
For any of you, how have you managed to keep this an endeavor that your fellow students want to join, rather than it spiraling off into like a group of nerds, viewed by fellow students as a group of nerds or do-goodies or, all of that. How do you keep it real and that people learn?
Sometimes it's just like people stem from our different friend groups, so it's like literally we'll take a yearbook and we'll just look at people in the yearbook and be like, I think they might be a good fit. Let's interview them. Right?
No, I think she's saying why aren't you guys viewed as goobers for doing this work?
Oh.
I
totally misinterpreted.
I feel like, to be honest, we're kind of superstars, not because of our own, not because of the status as so much. We're just I think being in this, that all of our personalities have grown a little bit. We've become more who we are. We've become more comfortable speaking and socially, and I just feel like that is what attracts people to us. And then on top of that, people, I guess they admire it too, just the way that you can not necessarily be from a certain group of people, but be able to have a conversation with them and I don't know,
I think if you explain our purpose too, it's not, I don't know, it's not something that's seen as administration trying to get more people in trouble. If we just honestly say oh, we help get suspensions cut down and try to keep people in school, that's something that is cool, and it's something that's not, we don't have to defend it, it's something that most people think oh, that's pretty awesome that you're doing.
And they have a lot of social status, honestly, to be in, because in the office, they're allowed to come and go, they have a badge, they can sneak on the elevator, they have the ear of the principal, they call him Corey. I mean, they have a lot of power. When you think about your high school experiences and think about your high school experience, they have a lot of power because of who they are. And I think that you want that. I mean, I think I see ninth graders immediately, they'll look at them and they're and then they'll come in and they're how do I do what they're doing? I mean, they always, every single one of our ninth graders asks how to do what they're doing. And it's not because they see them doing circles, it's because they see the confidence they have. And I think it's because they're just who they are. They've been allowed to be who they are and seen in that light.
Did I understand you correctly a moment or two ago to say something about the importance of being able to be vulnerable? And I wonder, that's so interesting because I don't think of that as a characteristic of high school students. And I wonder if you found any way of developing that in the group, or how was that, I'm going to call it a transformation, come about?
Students want to answer.
Go ahead, Omar.
Well, in my opinion, I think the vulnerability comes from the circles being student-led. And I think in a student's eyes, the reason this works so well is because in a student's eyes, the administration and teachers are very rigid. I mean, that's the linear thing Auntie Belinda was talking about earlier. In a student's eyes, other students can relate more. And in their eyes, they can open up to us because they feel as though we might understand them better than an administration will. And that's, I think, personally where the vulnerability comes in. They feel as though we will understand them and we can either support and help in any way we can, just because we are students also.
So you don't practice or learn to be a little more comfortable with being vulnerable in the circle?
On day one,
Oh, God.
on day one, we never, I've known of people in the school, I knew about them, I didn't know them, but I've seen them or talked to them. We did an exercise and 4 of us started crying right in front of everybody, so that was kind of rough. We all kind of got deep and emotional, and then it took me back a little bit because at that time, if you were to ask me to talk about who I was as a person, I'd lie to you. I would tell you, but it wouldn't be the actual me. I just kind of hide myself. And now I feel like everybody up here knows that's talking to me, that I'm completely transparent now. If you ask me anything, I'll give you an answer. You might not like it, but I'll just give it to you how it is. And I feel like that vulnerability and the ability to do that, it just came with trust and us doing it. Because I can go to any of my Sky Squad members and I trust them now. I just believe in them. And I used to not and now every time we see each other in the hallway, we always say hi, we always talk, it's different because once you comfortable with somebody, you have no problem being vulnerable. And since day one, we all saw each other like going through, like we all were like crying and like really down. It like kind of opened us all up to the fact that, hey, they're okay, and you know, we can all trust them, and that's where you get that comfortability from.
And with other students, when we're in the circles, it's not necessarily something we had to practice. It's more of something that we all understand that we have to be vulnerable, for them to be vulnerable.
And it's funny, if you ask me what the weirdest day is ever, it's probably the first day that Sky Squad meets. Because as they say, you know, 1 minute you're crying, and then the next minute you're screaming and wiggling around like you're a worm, you know? They have us do the weirdest things, but it really does work. We get very, very comfortable with each other at the end of the day. So, like a whole day of just screaming, wiggling, and crying. That's probably the first Sky Squad meeting is.
Yeah, I'm curious, you talked a lot about what goes on at school. I'm wondering if any of your competence and problem resolution, dispute resolution, spills out of school into family or just social stuff going on after school.
Definitely. So my mom knows I'm in Sky Squad, and so whenever my brothers get into a conflict, I'm like. But I just know, like outside of schools, like sometimes I live in like an area where like a lot of kids from my school also live. So like if we're outside one day, you know, something's going on, they'll be like, Keyshawn, like this is happening, and then they're like, so it's kind of like the same, but it's not in school. So it does, for me, it spills out.
Knowing that one of the important things that happens in school are the academics, and what impact does these activities as the squad have on your academics? Does it add to it, take away from it, complicate it?
I think it adds to it. I think my teachers are like super like accepting. Like if I have to leave class, she's like, okay, just turn in your work. Like, so I just feel like it makes teachers know me before I even have their class. So I think it also builds like a greater path for success.
Do you ever get the feeling that you know more about what's going on in school than the administration?
Every day.
You're seeing this conflict all the time. Do you ever say, hey, what the hell's going on here in school that's causing this conflict?
Yeah, like it's all the time, like you said. We literally like will know about a fight that's gonna happen because maybe like we have a friend that knows that person. They're like, and they say something about a fight, and it's like ears on automatically. But like most of the time, we know about stuff maybe a day before administration even gets to it. So.
I think that's true about like kids too. Like I think a lot of times the students of a school would have a better ear to like what's going on and like the real parts of what's going on than an administration. So with us having like the extra knowledge and the like ability to see what's happening and see why it's happening and have these kids in the office and circles, it just like heightens that a little bit. It allows us to use it.
Do you ever share that with the administration?
Yeah.
Yeah. They know.
Yeah.
Administration knows.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're very aware that. You just don't as an adult. I mean, even me in the office, like I'm sure I know a third maybe or a fourth of what's going on. Like we're adults, so admin is so far removed. They're really the admin's lifeline is really these guys. So that's how they're getting a feel for what's happening in the building is by being able to connect with them.
Can I say something to Al's question? I heard your question, I think, about the academic, the balance of it all. I think it's your question. And we addressed that in training as well. So at the very start, they recognized that Sky Squad is not a substitute for anything else. And many of the students, if not all of them, have other things happening too, sports teams and other kinds of extracurriculars. Some of them work, have jobs that they go to. So they do take on a lot, but they know that Sky Squad is not a substitute for getting off the hook for your performance or anything like that. So they accept that responsibility. And the team that Amy recognized, the team building that she recognized, gives each of them the permission to say, I can't right now. I have to prepare this project, finals, or whatever's going on, so they may have to lean back a little bit, not be kicked out or excluded from the Sky Squad, but they're not as available for whatever reason. So the other students just pick up the slack. So that team orientation, you know, is so intense and should be replicated in every environment where people have to work together because they really have each other's backs. And I find that to be encouraging and inspiring. I say hands down, if I do nothing else at Dispute Resolution Center, I can be proud of them because these are the folks who will do this work in the future. And that's a personal thing to me. I have to pass this on, and they got it. They are leaders, they are time managers, they're project leaders, they're policy makers, they just, all of that is in each one of them, and I get to hear it. I feel privileged I get to hear it early in their lives, but they do know how to do that, and it is an important piece, because as a parent, I want them to still get A's and, do those kinds of things too.
Well, and you're getting 8 students today when really everybody wanted to come. Everybody wants to come to these type of things. But we have SATs next week. And so and Nate was supposed to come. Nate had his permission slip in and everything, but just at the last minute he was feeling so overwhelmed. He was like, I'm sorry, you guys, I can't come. So 3 of them in the last 2 days just were feeling that pressure and just kind of backed out. And we were like, all right, we love you, miss you. Nate went through the little receiving line on the way out. We all high-fived him. So, yeah, and I do, and I'll check in on them. I mean, most of the people we have here today, everybody's pretty good students, but we do have students on Sky Squad who struggle, and I'll check in with them, and they don't get to do circles for a while, or they might, if they're with me, I make sure they're doing work instead of whatever else. So if they're struggling, they have me as that extra level of get your grades back so I can use you.
We're both asking the same.
Maybe it's the same question. I'm really intrigued about how you've obviously built a lot of trust with the other students. I mean, high schools are hotbeds of gossip. And obviously your confidentiality stuff works, so nobody would ever talk to you. How do you manage to do that? I mean, how do you do that?
You have a confidentiality statement in every circle. So basically it says whatever we talk about in this room stays in this room. For the younger kids, we're like, don't Snapchat it, don't tweet it, don't say anything about it. The way this is set up is specifically for you and the other person to be able to get in this content and keep it between yourselves. And even with Sky Squad, only other person that knows what goes on in the circle is Amy or other Sky Squad members.
And I honestly get 90 seconds of what's happening. And unless I need to ask, I don't really know what goes on in circles. Honestly, I trust them. I need them to distill it down to me. And mostly I'm concerned about what did you guys think that you did well? What do you need? Did you feel like you needed something to do differently? What did you do well? What didn't you do well? I'm usually working on them and relying on them to tell me, okay, what were the resolutions? Do you think it's for real? So they really are keepers of this information. I have a general idea of what's happening, but they know, and I'm not there. I don't know the information. So a lot of it, even if admin asks me, I'm like, I don't know. We're going to have to ask Keyshawn. I don't know. So it's pretty powerful.
And so with confidentiality, with the other students, I think it's still almost all that relates back to the vulnerability. They understand that they're being vulnerable, so they understand that they can't share that information. They don't want that information shared with others, and they trust us and the other person because they are being vulnerable. Everyone's being vulnerable. They all kind of have this mutual understanding that they can't share this with others.
And if they do, they lose that privilege to be able to participate in the circle or be involved with Sky Squad.
We've heard it a couple of times with 9th graders, especially after their first circle. We'll hear from somebody else. Somebody else will come in. They just said something about the circle, and we'll just go get them and bring them back in and talk to them about how important it is again and say, you will lose your ability to use this to be part of us, to have access to this office, to have access to us if you can't hold this, what we do in here, sacred. And they get that. Students get that. When you give them an opportunity to make a better choice, they usually will.
I have a question, a couple. First, an acknowledgement. I think it's great that you all are here. Listening to you share is inspiring. I'm curious, how do you see yourself impacting the culture at your school in regards to a couple things? How do teachers, staff support, not support? How do you feel about whether, I don't know if they participate in circles with you or not, and how do you think your presence and the time that you've been involved is impacting other students or school culture?
So I know
Frame that. I ask because I work in different places at different times, and what you're doing by comparison in Washington County is unique and it's wonderful. to get this idea accepted within a school and within a school's culture and have administrative support is also unique and wonderful. So I'm wondering, how are you feeling all of that?
I know for the school community, like I know we have like hall monitors or whatever, and I guess last year there was like some tension between the hall monitors and students, and it was just like, I guess they were trying to take it upon themselves to handle conflict that they saw, and it was like, it seemed to most students that they were doing more damage than good. So as Sky Squad members, we stepped in and approached the CAs one-to-one on behalf of the other students, and was just telling them straight, like, this is how it's being seen, what you're doing, nothing, it's not necessarily what you're doing is wrong, but this is how it's being perceived by us. And so is that just being honest and just being straightforward is what helped change it. So now, like, the CAs are super cool, they walk you to class, they ask you about your day, so it's just like, it's not nothing that they're doing wrong, but sometimes you just need a little bit more insight. And I know with, like, teachers, they trust us, they asked us to do class circles, like, if they see something going on in their classroom. We had a class circle where like the teacher wanted a better relationship with her students. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just like an elevated level of trust for like from the administration and from the TAs. Like it's almost like in a lot of ways we serve between the bridge between like the students and the administration, and in a lot of ways that's empowering to see like both sides of the same issue and being able to relate to like, the administration even and talk to the students, be like, hey, like, I know this sounds like an easy fix, but it's really not because of this, and vice versa. So I think it's good to see both sides, and it definitely helps us with the work we do.
And then, like, the students receive us, like, extremely well. Like, they're always coming to us, asking us to help them, even to some point, like, where we have to kick them out of the office. Because, like, they just, sometimes they can't be there because, like, Amy has a meeting. Or sometimes it just gets too crowded, and sometimes, yeah, it just gets too crowded, so we just can't. There's a lot of people in that office all the time.
Like, we run out of chairs, like.
And I feel like the big thing in West is that the overall culture of our school has gotten a lot better from like, because I remember I came in as a freshman, there was like a, I wouldn't say it was bad, but there was like a ton of fights and stuff, and like, it was kind of crazy and there was like a lot of drama, and I felt like uncomfortable, like really uncomfortable, because I was like super conservative. I'm not that like that. I'm loud and fun now. And I feel like now that like ever since I joined Sky Squad, I mean it calmed down the next year, and now this year's like nothing. Like it's not like nothing's happening, but it's like everything's calmed down. Like we don't have fights, and like the little like arguments we have, it's so easy because like sometimes I'll be in the hallway and I see little arguments, and I just quickly just like take a 2-minute conversation. I pull somebody over like, hey, really, like, come on, man. There's no point, like, and I feel like they get it because they like know me, like, and I'm telling you right now, I'm not like, I wasn't super like social, but now ever since I joined it, I talk to 10th graders, I talk to 9th graders, I talk to seniors about their problems, and they all just like kind of just go on and listen, and they go up on their day, and then they just get over it, like, and it's so like, the culture's so like relaxed, like everybody can just relax and be themselves and not have to worry about what other people like infringing upon their like being themselves, and that I feel like that is like so helpful, and it's like great.
So
Now, it sounded like I heard you describe like maybe a 3-year process or something like that.
And the literature supports this, that it takes about 3 years to see that shift in culture and climate in the school communities. So I think that's exactly what's laid out here. So yeah.
Which we started to feel it, really the end of the second year we really started to feel, and that's where we really started to, last year, because of that, seeing it at the end of the second year, the third year we hit hard the mentoring, because it's like, all right, if we're not going to do a ton of circles because we don't have a lot of fights and a lot of conflicts that need a lot of circles, how do we kind of extend our proactive interventions? And so then the mentoring comes in. So.
You do community building circles too, like in classes kind of thing?
Yeah, if teachers allow it. Yeah, we're still working hard on the teachers. If they have a problem, they'll bring us in, but it's not as frequent as we would like it to be.
I have a question, but first, thank you. You're doing amazing work. You bring a lot of hope to this room, so you're very inspiring, as he said. I'm interested to know, some of you said that you were seniors, but this is really a question for all of you. How has this work changed some of the ways you think about how you're going to carry this work forward when you leave Skyline, either the end of this year or in the future?
It's one of our slides.
Oh, is it going to be
Yeah,
up?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Wait for
Something to
it.
look forward to.
All right, thanks.
All right, take us through process, Tessa.
Okay, so the process starts when there's a conflict and either the student knows that it needs to be handled or a teacher or an admin sees that it needs to be handled. So then the conflict gets referred to us and then we start going into the process of getting the students into the office and making sure that Amy knows what's going on, so then we as the members and students can get to that point where it's just us after the logistics are laid out and stuff.
I think that's good. Any questions on that? I think we've covered something.
Is there paperwork? Out of curiosity, because there's all
Yeah, if you, yeah, well, I'll show you that. That's a video, but I don't think we need to watch it. Look at the sound and stuff. Okay, so this is our, we edit this every year, which is why it's a draft of 2016. It's actually a little bit different now. But they have a script that they follow, and they don't, it's not a script, like the first part through E, I asked them to read that. And part of the script, we developed that together, and every year we make a few changes. But the reason, because in a lot of traditional peacemaking, there's not going to be a script, and it's not like that. But in high school, and especially with the time limitations, it's like I'm asking them to come out of wherever they are, because sometimes they're not. I don't have anybody in that hour, and so it's like, okay, you're in AP Chemistry. Here, do a circle, and it's like they need something. And so the script kind of helps them just stay in order, and it kind of helps each other. So they are free to veer from it. But what we have found is the A through the E, it's like stick to that, because that process has a purpose for every single thing on here. So that question we ask is cereal soup, we get people talking, all those things are there for a reason. But then they can they freestyle it from then on, and that's where the real work is in those questions. That obviously we all know. So then they get into those questions and kind of start talking. But the script kind of helps them get very present very quickly.
And how did that come about, sort of in field work, or is this something that through?
The students, that first group of students and I and Auntie Belinda, we just did it. Like we just, all the stuff that we got from Auntie Belinda, like you'll see, like all those questions are just right out of any material she gave me, those questions. And then the confidentiality we added, because we wanted it to be really, I want them to read that statement, because the students said that. Like I think that was 2 years ago. They said we need a statement and they need to sign it to put some weight to it. And so we did that. And then the introductions was just from our training that, you want to get people talking, you want them to feel comfortable and talk about something that you don't have a lot of stakes. It's not a high stakes question. So it's just all out of our training, and we just distilled it down and try to put it in script form.
So when we train, we give these group not only the content of the training, but templates of forms that they can decide to modify and decide how they want to use it. Sure. Yeah, so we try to give a full package so that they can run.
So yeah. I don't know that we need to read this. You all can just kind of look at it. But this is what they work through. It's just blown up so you can see it. And I think the students, so I add that, do not move on unless you could ask those last questions, which is, how does this making you feel? What do you really think this is about? But I think they all get to that in a different way. If you guys want to speak to that, about what that looks like after the script. You guys want to speak to that?
I mean, yeah, it's not in that order and it's not in that exact wording, but we get to all these questions eventually, because I feel like we kind of need to do that in order to get down to what the real problem is and be able to resolve the problem.
Yeah, I mean, once you kind of hit that letter F on the last slide, once you kind of hit those questions, it really is just kind of more free-flowing, and you hear but eventually all the questions do get asked, but it's kind of in their own way, depending on the people, depending on the problem, but it's pretty much free-flowing.
And I feel like as really, you want to get them to start talking, because there's going to be some people who just don't want to talk and don't want to be there. You got to get them talking, because once they get talking, you get to like the small problem. But I feel like a lot of problems have an underlying problem, which is the real issue that they want to help, and that you got to get to that. And you're not going to, like you said, Rome wasn't built in a day, so you got to dig for it. You got to work for it. You're not, very rarely will somebody just come in and just like spill their guts to you. You got to get there, and that's where being vulnerable comes in. And that's where like all these questions, I feel like most of these questions are just leading to like that main problem that's really bothering them. And that's why they started fighting, like whatever they did.
And so in this process, so there will be students that I know, so like I'll call in, like I'll say to Ty and Miles, like I'm like, I don't know what's happening, and they're obviously not going to talk to me. Like these are two like 17-year-old men that fought. So whatever you need to do to get to the bottom of this, great. And I trust them to go in, and if you're not doing the script, fine. If you're doing the script, fine. I need you to get a result, and so I need to trust them to get that result. And I think they know what that means. And so sometimes I'm sure they're telling me like, yeah, we did the script, and then I'm sure they're not following the script. But if we get to a resolution, that's what I'm asking of them. And some of them have done enough circles that they don't need that all of the paperwork as much, but for some students their workload is so heavy that they might only do like 3 circles in a year, and they might not have that, so they do need the script. But for other people, they're in my office, every day, and they're able to kind of free flow a little bit more. I think we've even changed how this wording is this year, but it's all the same gist. And making sure that each student owns something. So this is Kelsey. She was just talking about one of the teacher circles because somebody asked about that. Okay, so we'll skip. So Kelsey was just going to talk about one of the teacher circles that she was in as a participant because it was her teacher, and she's a Sky Squad member. And so she tells this story about how powerful that was to see it, how dysfunctional her class was. We came in, we did about a 70-minute circle, and she talks about how that's changed the environment in her classroom and how powerful that was to be on the other side of that to watch it.
When you say you do a teacher circle, so it's where's the conflict?
Hers was the whole class hated the teacher. Yeah. Just didn't, and they were not communicating well, and the teacher was also just not being heard, and the students were not being heard, and they both needed to hear where each other were coming from. So the whole class sat in a circle with the teacher, and then I sat in on that as well, because whenever there's an adult, I'll sit in. So if there's a teacher-student circle, which we do maybe once a month, with just one-on-one, I'll sit in on that and have another student with me.
That gives the students some power that
Yeah.
they may not have had.
Yes.
I like that.
Which is why some teachers are resistant to that. Yeah. Why don't you take the next couple, Solomon?
Predominant circle topics are friendship misunderstandings. I've had a couple of those. Classroom tensions, racism, sexism, homophobia, and miscommunication. That's a big one, actually, a very big one. That's probably why it's bold.
I have a question about it. How do you resolve conflicts with racism, sexism, and homophobia?
That's a good question.
That's a great question.
It's not easy.
Yeah. It's not easy.
But the goal is not to change the person, but to show them a different point of view, to show them that it's not right, but not necessarily to change them as a person, because you can't change anyone, but you can show them what is right, and they can make that decision on their own.
Yeah.
But you have to also tell them they can't do it again, not to
You have to equip them with all the tools they need for empathy, to be able to relate to the other person and see, oh, you felt this way, I didn't know that. How does this make my actions change?
And another thing is we don't necessarily, they don't have to leave that room best friends, they don't have to leave there holding hands, but they do have to leave there being able to live with each other. If they're in the same classroom, they have to be able to sit in that classroom with each other. That's the biggest thing that we want to.
Does that include some sort of what will you do if you have this, or in this situation of the conflict again? What will your actions be?
Yeah, that's kind of covered on the sheet.
Yeah.
That, she had on the other slide. It says, yeah, like what will you do moving forward, or what will you do to make it right?
Yeah.
And like how she said, the wording kind of changes, so it's like we incorporate like what will you do if it happens again? Like if you need to come to us, will you? Or like if you can resolve it on your own, you can.
What would this look like in a week, in a month, in a year?
So like
yeah.
moving forward, what would this look like? How Solomon was saying.
And unless it's not appropriate, I come in now at the end and I just want to hear the resolutions because I think it's valuable for the students to say it out loud. So unless Sky Squad says, no, don't come in, I just come in right at the end and say, tell me the resolutions so I can hear them. And then they tell me what they've come up with. And that's about 2 minutes.
And touching on what Solomon said about how like we make sure they go out being able to live together, it's because our goal isn't to put blame on any one of the people, but to resolve it and make sure they can coexist afterwards, but never blame on one person. That's a big thing.
And again, it's giving students an opportunity to be their best selves. So, yeah, they're dealing with, somebody that's racist at 14 because they said something, they called a student gay, or they said the N-word, or so part of our mission is you're not defined by that one moment. So aren't we supposed to be able to mess up, especially as teenagers? So can I be somebody that thinks that, and this actually happened, that I have a friend who's black, and it's cool, I'm allowed to say the N-word because my friend's cool with it, right? And the friend, if they're not in the circle or have a safe place to say, no, I'm not cool with it, says like, yeah, okay. And then there's this white kid running around saying the N-word because he thinks it's okay. In the circle then, they get in the circle, and you say, do you like being called the N-word? And you let the kid tell, and this friend is like, oh my God. And they feel terrible, and they own that behavior. You give them the safe place to be dumb and make a stupid mistake and get better. And isn't that what we want out of our teenagers? So instead of deeming them as, oh my gosh, you totally made fun of somebody for being a Muslim, you're the worst person in the world, it's like, yes, that's our first reaction, but then it's our job to get to the bottom of, why would you do that? Why would you say that? And give them the opportunity to just be dumb as a teenager. Yeah. And to say at the end, yeah, and most of, we did have that one at the end, that one young man who, right after the election, right after last year's election, we could not get past. He was probably the one that we just had to let go. And it hurts my heart to this day because it's like that's, all those comments on the interweb, I'm like, he's probably the one writing them. Like, we couldn't get to him. But what I do think is good, and what I tell them is, you still had somebody sit in the room, look the other person in the eye, and own what they said. Instead of saying it on their computer or saying it down the hallway, he had to look that kid in the eye and admit that he was pretty terrible and acted terribly. So at the end of the day, even if it's just that, they're still walking away with a chance at empathy that they wouldn't have had anyway. So yeah, so the racism, sexism, homophobia, it really is when you give young people, I mean, they've only been, so if you're a 14-year-old ninth grader, you've only been verbal for what, 10 years? I mean, honestly, we act like, oh, you should know this, and it's like, should they? It's like, especially if they're hearing it from home, like, should they know that? And so it's what they do. They step in and they say,
there are plenty of adults.
Yeah. Yeah.
They've been verbal for 53 years.
Yeah. But I really believe this, and I don't know if the students, I'm hoping they're with me, but I really believe when you give humans an opportunity to do well, especially young people, they will. If you give them a safe place to be honest and kind, they will. They'll step up. And so that's what they model. They model kindness. So there's Taylor Elam. She was, because of her work with restorative justice, she was the 2016 Young Citizen of the Year. And so we did have this video that they talk about. There's Miles. We have these videos that talks about, and one of them is Nadina, who's Omar's sister. She's awesome. So yeah, we had them talking about how this changes them. So your question, a couple of you asked them why they do this work and how it's changed them. So instead of seeing the video, we can just ask them. So why do you do this work and how's it changed you?
Well, I mean, One of the big things for me is just to be able to help others in this sort of in these situations and be able to really make an impact on their lives and the culture and the community, and to stop them from that school to prison pipeline like Miles was talking about. That is huge for me, in my opinion, and it's really changed. I mean, my outlook on the world and kind of the problems that people have, and understanding those problems. But I mean, I really do this work to help those others, especially now after understanding it even more. I mean, that is a huge thing to me nowadays.
Me personally, I've had friends and family fall victim to the school prison pipeline. That's why I really like doing this type of work. But it's really just helped me like become more open-minded, and like everybody keeps on saying, be more vulnerable, be able to understand the other side. Like we were saying, it's not to make everybody like buddy, but just have like to be able to understand where the other person is coming from, and to be able to know that you can make two people coexist again. That's a good feeling.
I think the biggest thing I learned is just to be able to be yourself and be open, and like it's okay to be different. And I feel like we need to like embracing the difference is like the biggest thing.
For me, I know that I've become more comfortable with myself, just like not being afraid of who I am and being able to speak my mind. And I know that one of the reasons that I really like doing this is because, I mean, one, you see the results, and two, like, to know that that one moment that you're with that person could impact their lives.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I've been thinking a lot about how like one group or one person or like Sky Squad can make an impact on like a culture and a community, and like how can like 20 people like make something and make connections and change a culture that lasts like far beyond like 4 years that I've been here or 4 years that we've all been here. And it's just kind of like impactful, and just you get those feelings of like overwhelming gratitude and like happiness when you have like two people in a circle that connect, and they're like, oh my god, like how did I think that way? And like they're best friends and they're crying, and it's like, I don't know, it's just pretty impactful for me.
Personally, it's really influenced what I want to do when I get older, and my future in that aspect, like working in restorative justice and promoting that type of work. And like, I don't know, it's just really inspiring to work with this, and just always promoting the best of who someone is and the best of who you are, and like also using this as a place to be a voice and not an echo, and always be strong and lead.
I used to be the kid who would, talk and hardly listen. And so now I really feel like I am a very capable listener who can really understand where people are coming from. And as well as that, I feel like now I'm able to look at like a bigger picture kind of thing, where I'd be like so set in one thing, and then I'd be able to step back now and just be like, all right, I understand. So.
Yeah. I just want to address all of you personally and say how commendable the work you do is, not just because of the ripple effect, right? But because for being so young and having a devotion to these kinds of ideals, right? That people don't practice trust, vulnerability, and extending that hand in a very genuine way. And you have that. And that's even just for you, that introspective work is formidable. It's important. So, yeah.
I want to echo that comment. I'm privileged to teach second and third year law students negotiation at Michigan State, and I see you all kind of a younger version of the students that I have and the students that I've taught, which is to say that you all are clearly on the right track here. You've obviously acquired and are mastering skills that are critically important, not just for the people that you serve, but in your for use in your own lives, regardless of what you choose to do. You're terribly impressive group, and I wish you every continued success in your work.
As you make your college applications, how big a part of that application has been the reference to this activity?
About most of them.
So So as a result of that, did you get into 41 colleges?
I wish this had been around.
Yeah.
I wish this had been around.
Yeah.
I do too. Yeah.
Well, it's in response to the culture probably that you felt at Skyline, like that there was more, I think it came out of that, like a response to that.
And reasonably so.
Yeah.
Because it was toxic.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
And I thought that the environment for me was nurturing because I did have a connection with, you know, hall monitors and my educators. That was helpful, useful. But to see this exist on a peer level, that's fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah. Right. Well, I do want Solomon. So we always, we started last year because we talked about vulnerability, and Solomon is a singer-songwriter. I think he would say rapper more.
I'd say all three of those.
Yeah. So I'm just going to have him read it to you just because it's so powerful. I just want you to hear it from a young person.
There is no greater threat to the critics and cynics of fearmongers than those of us who are willing to fall because we've learned how to rise. With skinned knees and bruised hearts, we choose owning our stories of struggle over hiding, over hustling, over pretending. When we deny our stories, they define us. When we run from struggle, we are never free. So we turn toward truth and look it in the eye. We will not be characters in our stories, not villains, not victims, not even heroes. We are the authors of our lives. We write our own daring endings. We craft love from heartbreak, compassion from shame, grace from disappointment, courage from failure. Showing up is our power. Story is our way home. Truth is our song. We are the brave and courageous. We are rising strong.
So they don't think they get taught about vulnerability, but it's like I make them do this cheesy stuff all the time. And I'm like, let's read poems together.
To rip off the comment you made, Solomon, you're not just listening, you're hearing people.
Yep.
And that's way different. Way different.
Yep.
I'd pass an observation. I had a little different career path than most people here. I grew up in the business world and retired being in charge of 70 people. And I can tell you that as you travel through your careers, maybe 20% of your career will have to do with the technical stuff. The other 80% will have to do with your interaction with your workers and people around you. So with what you've done here, you have revved yourselves up and put yourselves ahead of everybody else in self-development and your ability to succeed in whatever career you choose. So that's just great, just great.
Yay. Well, thank you for letting us be here. And always thank you to Auntie Belinda.